Top 10 most famous and historically important events of the Dark Ages. Important events of the Dark Age, spanning from the fall of the Western Roman Empire to the Treaty of Verdun, were marked by significant upheaval and transformation in Western Europe. This era saw the collapse and the rise of new kingdoms through the migration period. Events such as the Battle of Tours halted Muslim expansion, while Charlemagne's coronation revived imperial authority. Viking raids and invasions brought further disruption, while conversions to Christianity and religious controversies shaped cultural landscapes. The Islamic Golden Age influenced Europe through knowledge transmission, while the rise of the Carolingian Empire and the Treaty of Verdun laid the groundwork for modern European nations. These events underscore the complexities and enduring impact of the Dark Ages on our shared history. We start off with the fall of Roman Empire, 476. Western Roman Empire was this big shot for centuries, ruling over Europe, North Africa, and even parts of the Middle East. But by the 5th century, things started to get tough for them. They were dealing with a bunch of problems, both on the inside and the outside. The Roman Empire crumbled due to barbarian invasions. Imagine a bunch of Germanic tribes, like the Visigoths, Vandals, and Ostrogoths, constantly raiding and invading Roman lands. It was like a never-ending party for them. Weak leadership. The Roman rulers were a mess. They were basically a bunch of clueless dudes who couldn't keep their act together. There were power struggles, political instability, and a whole lot of drama. Economic decline. The Roman economy was like a sinking ship. They relied too much on slave labor, taxes were through the roof, and farming wasn't exactly thriving. It was a recipe for disaster. The end of the Roman Empire came about in September 476 AD. The last Roman emperor of the West, Romulus Augustulus, got kicked out by a German prince named Odoacer, who was already in charge of what was left of the Roman army in Italy. He sent the royal stuff of the Western Roman emperors to Constantinople, which was like the official end of the Western Roman Empire. The Roman Empire couldn't keep control of its huge territory anymore, and it broke up into a bunch of smaller kingdoms and states. Some of these were ruled by Germanic and barbarian groups. Odoacer took over Italy. The Visigoths ran parts of Spain and France. The Vandals were in North Africa, and other groups had their own kingdoms all over Western Europe. When Rome fell, it was like the end of a really cool party and the start of a long, dark hangover. The Western Roman Empire crashed and burned, which was a bummer for Europe's history, culture, and government. But it made way for the medieval kingdoms, the Byzantine Empire, and eventually all the cool countries in Europe today. Migration period, 4th-6th centuries. Also known as the barbarian invasions, was a super important time in European history that went down between the 4th and 6th centuries CE. This was a crazy time when people all over Europe were on the move. Tribes like the Germanic and Slavic folks decided to pack up and leave their old homes in search of new homes. It was like a giant game of musical chairs, but with a whole lot more people and a whole lot more land. There were push factors and pull factors that led to the migration. Some of the push factors were pressure from Huns. The Huns, a nomadic people from Central Asia, exerted pressure on neighboring tribes, forcing them to move westward. Changes in climate, crop failures, and resource scarcity, and the decline of the Western Roman Empire created power vacuums and instability. Some of the pull factors were opportunities created for plunder, since some of the migrating tribes sought wealth and resources in new lands. There was also the desire for better living conditions, and some groups sought more fertile lands or safer territories. Tribes involved were Germanic tribes, the Goths, including the Visigoths and Ostrogoths, Vandals, Franks, Lombards, Burgundians, and others. The Slavic peoples, or better known as the Slavs. Other groups included the Alans, Suebi, Alemanni, and many more. There was the impact and consequences of the migration. This is not limited to formation of new kingdoms, as tribes settled in new regions, hence establishing their own kingdoms. This led to the reshaping of political and cultural landscapes. Basically, the fall of the Western Roman Empire allowed for the emergence of post-Roman states. There was substantial cultural exchange as a result of cultural interactions, blending of traditions, and linguistic shifts. This led to the end of classical antiquity, meaning that the migration period marked the transition from late antiquity to the early Middle Ages. Migration period laid the groundwork for the medieval world and influenced the development of European societies. It shaped the distribution of ethnic groups, languages, and political boundaries. This was a period of dynamic and transformative era that left a lasting impact on European history and culture, hence the legacy. Battle of Tours, 732, also known as the Battle of Poitiers, took place on October 10, 732. It was a significant battle during the Umayyad invasion of Gaul, modern-day France. The Umayyad folks who ran things from Damascus had grabbed a bunch of land in North Africa, Al-Andalus, and were marching into Europe. The Muslim forces, led by Abd al-Rahman al-Ghafiqi, aimed to conquer more European territories. Opposing forces were Frankish and Aquitanian forces, led by Charles Martel, the de facto ruler of the Frankish kingdoms, and Umayyad Caliphate forces, led by Abd al-Rahman al-Ghafiqi, governor of Al-Andalus. Where the battle actually happened is a mystery, but it went down somewhere in between Poitiers and Tours, which are cities in northern Aquitaine in western France. The Frankish troops fought without heavy cavalry, unlike the Umayyad forces. Despite being outnumbered, Charles Martel's forces emerged victorious. Al-Ghafiqi was killed in combat, and the Umayyad army withdrew after the battle. The Battle of Tours halted the Muslim advance into Europe. It is often credited with curtailing the Islamization of Western Europe. The victory helped lay the foundations of the Carolingian Empire and Frankish domination of Western Europe for the next century. Basically, the Battle of Tours was a pivotal moment that secured the future of Christian Europe and shaped the course of medieval history. Charlemagne's coronation, 800. The events surrounding Charlemagne's coronation as emperor in the year 800 CE. Charlemagne, or Charles the Great if you're fancy. He was the king of the Franks and also the Lombards. Charlemagne's territory was huge, like parts of modern-day France, Germany, Italy, and a bunch of other places. His time as king was a big deal, with lots of changes in politics and culture. December 25th in 800 was the big day. In a fancy church in Rome, Pope Leo III put a sparkly crown on Charlemagne's head, making him the emperor of the Romans. The coronation was a huge moment that had some major effects like bringing back the old Roman Empire. Pope Leo III put a crown on Charlemagne's head to bring back the idea of the Roman Empire in Western Europe. The title emperor was super important and powerful. It was like a reminder that the Roman Empire was still around, even though the western part of it had ended hundreds of years earlier. Charlemagne's coronation was like the ultimate power move. He became the coolest and most powerful leader of his time. He was like the bodyguard of Christianity and the Pope. Charlemagne's influence wasn't just limited to the Frankish territories. He was a big player all across Europe. The relationship between the papacy and the Frankish rulers intensified. The Roman See became the first metropolitan church within Charlemagne's dominions. The Pope's role in the coronation elevated the papacy's influence and ecumenical pretensions. The coronation was an extra-legal and revolutionary proceeding. The Pope lacked the legal right to make Charlemagne emperor. It did not create a new Western Roman Empire alongside the existing Eastern Empire. In short, Charlemagne's coronation as emperor in 800 CE was a pivotal moment that shaped medieval Europe, intensified the papacy's influence, and left a lasting legacy. Viking raids and invasions, 8th–11th centuries. The Viking raids and invasions during the 8th to 11th centuries have become some of the most famous and notorious events in European history. Around the 8th century, Viking Age kicked off with Viking raids on unsuspecting villages near European rivers and the coast of England. These attacks were not planned, but they were really effective. Scandinavian raiders, known as Vikings, embarked on expeditions to Britain, Ireland, and the coastlines of Western Europe. Their goals included stealing, conquering, and colonizing new territories. They were fierce seafarers and warriors who left their mark on history with their raids and invasions. Well, let me break down some of the key things about their raiding and invading ways. They did surprise attacks. Imagine waking up to a bunch of Vikings suddenly showing up on your shores. That's how they often did it. They'd sneak up on their targets like ninjas, catch them off guard, and start plundering and pillaging. They were like lightning, swift and brutal. They'd strike quickly and relentlessly, leaving destruction in their wake. No time to relax when the Vikings are around. They would hit and run and weren't into occupying places long term. They'd raid, loot, and then disappear before anyone could catch up with them. They had technological advantage, had some pretty cool boats, called longships, that allowed them to travel long distances and navigate shallow waters, which gave them an edge over their enemies. Their fearsome reputation is better known for their fierce fighting skills and brutal tactics, and people were terrified of them, which made their raids even more effective. The Vikings weren't just looking for a good fight, they were also in it for the loot. They'd take anything they could get their hands on, from gold and silver to livestock and slaves. Sometimes their raids turned into explorations. They discovered new lands like Iceland and Greenland, expanding their influence and knowledge of the world. They were pretty resourceful and flexible. They could adapt to different environments and situations, and this helped them succeed in their raids. Their impact didn't just stop with their raids. The Vikings left behind a lasting legacy in terms of culture, language, and even genetics in the regions they raided and settled. Trade disruption. Those Vikings were a right royal pain in the neck, always messing about with trade routes and causing havoc. They also loved to raid towns and monasteries along the coast, because they were like treasure troves filled to the brim with gold, jewels, and all sorts of shiny things. They created political instability. All of a sudden, these weird and crazy attacks started happening out of nowhere. They were like magic, and they made a huge mess of things wherever they went. The whole political situation got turned upside down. The rulers around those areas had a tough time trying to stop those pesky Vikings from invading. What was the Vikings' influence on medieval Europe? The Vikings' impact extended beyond plunder and violence. It influenced medieval Europe through cultural exchange, language, and settlement. Viking exploration also led to the discovery of new lands, including Iceland, Greenland, and Vinland, possibly North America. The legacy of the Viking Age left a lasting imprint on European history which shaped the development of maritime trade, naval technology, and cultural interactions. The reputation of the Vikings as fierce warriors and seafarers endures in popular imagination. The Viking raids and invasions disrupted the status quo, influenced medieval Europe, and left an indelible mark on history. Conversion of Clovis, 496. Clovis I, also known as Clovis or Louis, was the king of the Franks who ruled over a powerful Germanic tribe that would later become the foundation for modern France and Germany. Before he changed his ways, Clovis adhered to pagan Germanic beliefs, and his people were all about worshiping many gods and spirits, which is called polytheism. The Battle of Tolbiac, 496. Clovis had a tough time fighting the Alemanni in a battle which was super intense, and Clovis was in a really bad spot. He looked up at the sky and prayed to the god that his wife, Clotilde, believed in. Clovis vowed to serve the Christian god if he emerged victorious. Inspired by his prayer, his troops fought with renewed vigor, and the Alemanni were defeated. As a result, Clovis won the Battle of Tolbiac and attributed his success to the Christian god. After the battle, Clovis returned to his capital, Reims. Clotilde, his wife, rejoiced at his victory and urged him to convert. Clovis sought guidance from Saint Remy, the Archbishop of Reims. Saint Remy instructed Clovis in the Christian faith. He made a confession of faith and pledged to serve the Christian God. He was baptized on Christmas Day, 496 AD. The significance of Clovis's conversion had profound consequences. It united the Franks and the Roman population under a common faith. The Frankish Empire became a major Christian power in Europe. His conversion led to the groundwork for the Carolingian Empire and the future Holy Roman Empire. Clovis' conversion marked a critical turning point, bridging pagan Germanic traditions with Christianity and shaping the destiny of medieval Europe. Iconoclasm Controversy. 8th–9th centuries. The Iconoclastic Controversy, or the Iconoclast Controversy, was a significant theological and political dispute that occurred within the Byzantine Empire, which was also known as the Eastern Roman Empire, during the 8th and 9th centuries. The controversy revolved around the use of religious images, specifically icons, depictions of Christ, the Virgin Mary, saints, and biblical scenes. It also involved theological debates about the nature of Christ, the role of matter in religious worship, and the distinction between divine and created. There were these people called iconoclasts who hated the idea of using religious icons when they worshipped. They were like, no way, icons are not for us. On the other hand, there were the iconophiles or iconodules. These people were crazy about icons and thought icons were the coolest thing ever and treated them with respect. Iconoclasts objected to the use of icons based on the Old Testament prohibition against graven images, Exodus 24. Some believed that excessive veneration of icons could lead to idolatry. Emperor Leo III and the First Iconoclasm, 726–787. Emperor Leo III, reigned 717–741, played a central role in the controversy. In 726 AD, he issued an edict banning the use of icons in churches and ordered their removal. Iconoclasts believed that icons distracted from the true worship of God. St. John of Damascus and other theologians defended the use of icons. They argued that icons were symbolic and served as a means of connecting the material world with the divine. Icons were seen as windows to heaven, allowing believers to contemplate the spiritual reality. Iconoclasm, 814–842, happened after a period of relative tolerance. Emperor Leo IV, reigned 814–820, revived iconoclasm. His son, Emperor Michael II, reigned 820–829, continued the policy. The controversy persisted until the reign of Empress Theodora, reigned 842–855. In 787 AD, the Seventh Ecumenical Council, Second Council of Nicaea, declared that the veneration of icons was orthodox. The use of icons was re-established, and the controversy came to an end. The Iconoclastic Controversy reflected tensions between the Eastern and Western branches of Christianity. It influenced religious practices, art, and theology in the Byzantine Empire. The triumph of iconophiles reaffirmed the importance of visual representation in Christian worship. The Iconoclastic Controversy was a complex and multifaceted struggle that shaped the Byzantine Empire's religious and cultural landscape. Islamic Golden Age, 8th–14th centuries. This was a remarkable period of scientific, economic, and cultural flourishing in the history of Islam. In the olden days, people thought the Islamic Golden Age started when Caliph Harun al-Rashid was running things from 786 to 809 AD. There was this place called the House of Wisdom in Baghdad that was like the epicenter of the whole shebang. Scholars from all over the Muslim world would gather there to translate all this ancient knowledge from places like Greece, Persia, and India into Arabic and Persian. Thanks to them, all those writings from philosophers, mathematicians, astronomers, and doctors from way back when didn't just hang on, but got even better. Advancements in science and mathematics. In space exploration, Muslim astronomers did some pretty cool things. Al-Battani figured out a way to tell where the stars were in the sky, and Al-Farghani wrote a book about how planets move around. Math was the king of the castle. This genius named Al-Khwarizmi came along and totally revolutionized the game. He's the one who invented algebra, the whole shebang with solving equations like x plus 5 x 8 and x to 2 plus 2x plus 1 are 0. Basically, he laid the groundwork for how we do algebra today. Then this guy called Ibn Sina, Avicenna, wrote a super important medical book called The Canon of Medicine. It was so good that people in Europe used it as a go-to guide for ages, philosophy, and theology. There was this guy named Al-Kindi, who people called the philosopher of the Arabs. He was a mixmaster, blending Greek ideas with Islamic thinking. Al-Farabi, another guy who was really into politics and ethics. His was all about figuring out how to create a fair and just society. And let's not forget Ibn Rushd, aka Averroes. He was a commentator on Aristotle's works and had a huge impact on how European scholars thought about things, literature and poetry. In the old days, when Arabic literature was the bomb, poets like Al-Mutanabi and Al-Ma'ari were dropping lyrical bombs left and right. It was like they were spitting fire with their words. And get this, around the same time the Arabian Nights, aka the 1001 Nights, happened. It was like a wild, crazy adventure that took readers on a magical journey of stories. Islamic art was awesome, with all sorts of mind-blowing geometric patterns, wicked calligraphy, and intricate designs. It was like, yo, we're making art that's totally different from anything you've ever seen. And the mosques, oh man, they were off the hook. The Great Mosque of Cordoba in Spain was mind-blowing. It was like a giant palace made of arches and columns. It felt like you were in another world. The influence of the Islamic Golden Age on medieval Europe was major. Some key things that went down include, but not limited to, knowledge transfer. The texts written by the ancient Greeks were translated into Arabic and made their way to Europe. This helped to preserve and spread knowledge from the classical era. European universities and libraries were influenced by the way the Islamic world organized their learning institutions. This helped advance education and scholarship in Europe. Islamic scholars laid the foundation for the scientific method that we use today. This set the stage for future scientific discoveries and advancements in Europe and beyond. So what brought about the end of the Islamic Golden Age? The Abbasid Caliphate fell apart when the Mongols invaded and took over Baghdad in 1258. That marked the end of the Islamic Golden Age, which was a time when Muslims made a lot of progress in science, art, and culture. The Islamic Golden Age was a beacon of intellectual curiosity, innovation, and cultural exchange, leaving a lasting legacy that transcended borders and time. Rise of the Carolingian Empire, 8th–9th centuries. The Carolingians were a cool family from France who became super important in the 8th century. They started this line of rulers who would totally change how things were done in Western Europe. In the Frankish kingdom of Austrasia, the Carolingians started out as the mayors of the palace. Think of them as the real power behind the throne, even though the Merovingian kings were the ones with the fancy titles. By the time Pippin the One of Herstal came along, he had basically turned the Merovingian kings into nothing more than figureheads. You know, just there for show, with no real power. Pippin too was the real deal, though. He was the one calling the shots, and he showed it by taking down his rival, Ebroin, from Neustria. Basically, Pippin II was the boss of the whole Frankish realm, even though he didn't have the official title of king. Charles Martel, Pippin II's son born outside of marriage, became the leader of the Franks. He pretended that the Merovingian kings were still in charge, but he was the one really running the show. When he died in 741, his sons, Pippin III the Short and Charlemagne, split the kingdom between them. After Charlemagne quit in 747, Pippin III became the only boss. In 750, he kicked out the last Merovingian king, Childeric III, with the help of Pope Zacharias. Pippin III was picked as the king by the Frankish nobles and was blessed by a Roman bishop. Pippin III's oldest kid, Charles, or Charlemagne as he's better known, was a real go-getter. He made the Franks even more powerful. Charlemagne was on a roll. He conquered Gaul, some parts of Germany, and even Italy. Oh, and he teamed up with the Pope and created a papal state in central Italy back in 774. Charlemagne started a time of renewed interest in learning and culture called the Carolingian Renaissance. He was big on education, so he started a few schools and encouraged people to study those old famous books. Charlemagne's court became a center of learning and cultural revival. Charlemagne's empire was like the foundation for what would become Europe in the Middle Ages. Charlemagne was a big deal. His rule influenced everything from art to buildings to how people were governed. when he was crowned Emperor of the Romans in 800 AD. That was also a pretty big deal. The rise of the Carolingian Empire under Charlemagne transformed Western Europe, leaving a lasting legacy in culture, politics, and education. Treaty of Verdun, 843. The Treaty of Verdun, agreed upon in August 843, divided the Carolingian Empire among the surviving grandsons of Emperor Louis the Père, the son and successor of Charlemagne. When Louis the Pieux died in 840, his three sons, Lothair, Louis the German, and Charles the Bald, started fighting over his humongous empire, which was stretching all the way from present-day France to places in Germany and Italy. Civil war erupted among the brothers as they sought supremacy. In 841 AD, Lothair I was defeated by his brothers at the Battle of Fontenoy. The Oaths of Strasbourg back in 842 sealed the deal between Louis II and Charles II, who were teaming up against Lothair IV. What made these vows stand out was the fact that they were made in Old High German and Old French, showing just how many different languages were spoken in the land back then. The Treaty of Verdun, 843, was the culmination of negotiations lasting over a year. It was signed in Verdun, a city in present-day France, and it aimed to resolve the power struggle among the brothers and prevent further bloodshed. The treaty chopped up the empire into three big kingdoms. There was Francia Occidentalis, also called West Francia, which Charles II, also known as Charles the Bald, got control of. That's roughly modern-day France, or so they say. Then there was Francia Media, or Middle Francia, which Lothair I got. That one included the Low Countries, the Rhineland, Lorraine, Alsace, Burgundy, Provence, and half of Italy up north. And finally, there was Francia Orientalis, or East Francia. That went to Louis VI, also known as Louis the German. That one eventually turned into the Holy Roman Empire. And there you have it, folks. We've journeyed together through the top 10 most famous and historically important events of the Dark Ages. It's been an enlightening trip back in time, hasn't it? Now, we'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on these events? Do you agree with our list? Or do you think there are other events that deserve a spot? Perhaps you have some insights that you'd like to share. We're eager to hear your opinions and suggestions. Remember, history is about understanding different perspectives and sparking discussions. So don't hesitate to drop your comments below. Let's turn this channel into a vibrant community of history enthusiasts. If you found this video informative and engaging, do give us a thumbs up. It helps us reach more people who share our passion for history. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay updated on our latest videos. Share this video with your friends, family, and fellow history buffs. Let's make learning history a fun and interactive experience for everyone. This is the Global Discovery Quest channel, your go-to place for fascinating historical insights. Until our next quest, keep exploring.